Donald Vodicka is now in hiding. We had to agree his lawyer came to the interview and we couldn't say where we met them.
Ever since I broke the code of silence, I've lost everything. I've lost friends that I had associated with the Department of Corrections. I've lost some of my family members. I've lost everything. I've lost my career. I lost financially. It has devastated me. I'm on the move all the time.
Why?
Because I fear for my life.
Seriously?
Seriously. I wear a bulletproof vest on a daily basis.
Show me.
It's a bulletproof vest. I also carry concealed weapons.
What up, loved ones? What it do? It's Patty Young right here. You know where I'm from. Thank you for watching and thank you for tuning in. If you're new to this channel right here, just hit the subscribe button real quick and give it a like if you think it's cool, if you think it's real, you know what I mean? So what we have right now here on the show is the man of honor with principles, morals, and ethic. And he's here to shed light, you know. Against all odds, he risked his life, he risked everything, all for the sake of doing what is right and doing what is just. So, ladies and gentlemen, author of the book, Greenwall, let us all welcome Vodicka. Thank you for coming to the show, sir. I'm
yes,
Pat. Your book, and hopefully you get to shed some light right here. You know what I'm talking about? So, first questions right now. Let's go way back. What were your vivid memories in childhood with your family, relatives, and friends? And how was your interpersonal relationship with people as a whole? So
well, you know, I grew up in California. I grew up in Ventura County. My father was military. My mother was a homemaker. I had a brother, a younger brother, but I grew up in the Ventura Camarillo area, went to high school, went to college. And then after college, I joined the United States Army, the military, and I went in the military for 4 years. I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And then my last year before I got out of the Army, I joined the Department of Corrections in California, and I came in 1988, and I activated the first prison, which is Corcoran State Prison. Back in 1988, I activated that prison and spent 4 years there.
Wow. 1988, that's when I was born. You're a real OG, a real veteran on the game, sir. You went to Corcoran first for 4 years in the shoe or in the kitchen?
Well, when I got out of the academy, yes, I landed, at Corcoran State Prison, and I worked the shoe kitchen for 3 years. I was in charge of the shoe kitchen. So I had to get all the inmates from the level 3 yard to come over to the shoe area and help me prepare the meals for the shoe inmates. So I stayed there for almost 3 years. And then after that, I went back to the line for about a year. And then in 1992, I transferred to Calipatria State Prison down in the lower desert. And I activated that prison. And that's where I became a part of the ISU, the investigations unit, otherwise known as the Goon Squad.
Wow, Calipat. I didn't know you opened that up. I was there for 3 years. I had a lot of experience right there also. And so at which point did you started to notice the Greenwall gang existed?
Well, after I left Calipatria, I transferred to Pelican Bay State Prison. And when I was up in Pelican Bay, I remained in the evidence as an evidence officer for ISU. I was up there for about 2 years, and then I was married then with my son, and we left to Salinas Valley State Prison, and that's why I opened up Salinas Valley State Prison in 1996. And then about 2 years later, after 1996, there was a big, huge Thanksgiving riot in 1998 on D-Yard, is when the Surdeños, the Southern Hispanics, were disrespected by the correctional staff there on the yard, and they were physically, they attacked staff. So the Green Wall actually started to emerge in 1998 after the Thanksgiving riot, at which time everything happened, and that's all detailed in the book.
Oh yeah, yes. Guys, don't forget to read the book, the Greenwall book. It's all in details right there. But I have the man himself here right now, so I have other few questions. Uh, how did you get involved in the Greenwall? How did you guys start having friction? And
Well, the thing is that I was never a part of the Greenwall, Para. I was never part of it. The inmates and the convicts would come up and tell me what was going on, and they were some of the level one inmates. When I was working in the vehicle Sallyport, some of the level one inmates were getting beat down by these guys who were part of the Greenwall. The Greenwall members at Salinas Valley were part of the investigations unit. They were ISU. They were the investigative services unit who investigates inmates and staff. And they were controlled by the warden at that prison at the time. He wanted to know everything that was going on at his prison. And he kept it from Sacramento. He didn't tell his higher ups about the Greenwall. He kept everything in-house. And that's also in the book.
wow, you know what? For me, that's mind blowing, man. I mean, you would expect, that me as an inmate before, if I was to fear for my life, I would go to the authority, to the police to save my life, and yet they don't even have my best intention also. So
That's correct. Well, some of these guys, Para, on the Greenwall, these guys, they started out, in 1998 with about 20 officers, and then it grew to about, over the 4 years from 1998 to about 2002, it grew from about 25 officers to probably 200 to 300 officers at the prison. It hit every yard. A, B, and C and D yard had members of the Greenwall on their yard. And what happened is these guys would have parties on the outside on the street. Let's say the seventh day fell on a Friday, so they'd have a party at somebody's house, and they talk about what they're going to do the next week, who they're going to target. And then they call themselves the 723 because the seventh letter of the alphabet is G, the 23rd is W. And they actually throw a gang sign up on their chest like a W for the wall. That's meaning the wall.
Oh, wow.
And some of these guys would have tattoos on their bodies, 723 or GW on their bodies.
Wow. So it's crazy. So can you confirm that the Greenwall did start it in Salinas Valley?
It started at Salinas Valley State Prison in 1998, and then it stayed there for about 2001, 2002. What had happened to me is I was ordered by the warden. He called me up to his office one day, and he asked me, "Hey, Officer Vodicka, do you know anything about the Greenwall?" I said, "Sir, I know a lot about the Greenwall." He goes, "Well, I need you to write a report. I need you to put something in writing and get it to me." I said, "Well, sir, I work with these guys. I work with them every day." So basically, it turned out, he said, Vodicka, I'm ordering you to write a report, and I need it on my desk by Monday. So I called a good friend of mine whose name was Joe Reynoso, who I worked at Pelican Bay with. He was my squad sergeant, and we talked a little bit, and he said, "DJ, just type everything out, keep a copy, turn it in." Well, I turned it into the warden, and then not knowing, he set me up. He threw me under the bus because he was in charge of the Greenwall. He wanted to know my knowledge. And then several of the other staff members from the squad came down and threatened my life when I was down in the vehicle Sallyport, and that's when all hell broke loose.
Oh, man, little did you know. You know what, sir? I kind of get where you're coming from because I see it. You had morals. You wanted to do the right thing, and you felt like you were seeing a lot of bad stuff, and that's not what you believe in personally as a person. So you went against the grain. But
well, I took an oath. I took an oath when I signed up for the Department of Corrections. I didn't take an oath to adhere to the code of silence. I was against the code of silence. I'm not going to sit there and look. These guys were doing criminal activities against the inmates and the convicts. They didn't care what race you were. These are the type of guys, like, let's say you've been down for 10 or 15 years and you're getting ready to parole. Well, these guys on the Green Squad would go up to your cell and plant a weapon in your cell. Now you're looking at your third strike or 25 life, and you're not going home.
Oh my God, that could have been easily any of us, anybody.
Anybody.
anybody that literally that they didn't like, you know.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
And I mean, while we're on the subject, also, because I have my own questions, because I seen them and I've heard rumors also in Calipat. Is it true that they wear the green bandana that represents they're a member of a Greenwall?
Well, that could be very possible. They wear Greenwall, but they also wore, when the Thanksgiving riot happened at Salinas, the officers came in with turkey pins, you know, like turkey pins with green GW turkey pins on their collars and their shirts. So yeah, they wear green, and they see, when we signed in our falsos, we had to sign in on our with a black ink pen. We sign in and out. You had to. These guys were signing in with a green ink pen on their names.
Oh, wow. I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's life. We're just gonna have to accept reality. But I'm curious from your point of view also, because I got charged as an adult when I was 15. This is my little story real quick. And I did get 10 years gang enhancement for committing a crime and being a gang member at the same time. So they added 10 more years to my sentence because that's California law. So the Greenwall gang, they don't get enhancement? It's weird, right? It's not fair, right?
No, it's not.
Yes. But yeah. So at this point, the warden found out that you knew or you had some valid, adequate information with regards to the Greenwall, according from your own perspective, and you told them everything. You wrote a report. You sent them. When did you start being intimidated, and how were you feeling during that time?
Well, I about 2 months later, after I gave them the report, I was approached by the investigations unit guys squad. They came down to the vehicle Sallyport, and they quoted verbatim out of my confidential memorandum. They quoted what I wrote to the warden. The warden called these guys into the conference room and burned copies of my reports and told all the squad members, Vodicka knows everything. He's going to bury us. We're going to be in deep trouble because Vodicka knows everything. And then I lost it. And then shortly after I lost it, I had a good friend that contacted the inspector general. Those guys came down and met me, and they met me at my house, and I sat down with them for about 4 hours on tape recording. And then about 2 weeks after I talked to them, they rushed and raided the prison. They took the warden out. They took ISU out. They confiscated computers, logbooks. They did a big investigations on that prison right away. So everybody knew that I was the one who ratted that out.
Oh, well,
And then real quick, they transferred me to another prison overnight. You know, that's unheard of. I left from Salinas Valley State Prison on a Friday, and I had to report to Pleasant Valley State Prison on Monday.
Wow, just like that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's good to hear that even though your higher ups, which was the warden at that prison, also had another higher ups who was doing some action about it, and you know, I'm glad they did that. But do you know how far does it go from the warden and who else are involved in the Greenwall?
When we when I left Pleasant Valley, I stayed there for about 8 or 9 months until I ran to a alarm on the yard to a housing unit, and I was running to the alarm, and I got into the housing unit, the rotunda, and there was a fight going on in there. The other officers that were supposed to run behind me, they stopped at the door. They didn't go in. So they knew that, they knew I was a rat. They wanted to take me out. Some of the inmates, and they were going to take me out. The officers had told them, hey, this guy's a rat, So I know I was going to get taken out if I ran into that day room. So after everything had happened, squash, I got pissed off. I cussed out the sergeant lieutenant, went up to the chief deputy warden's office, walked in his office, right past the secretary, and I gave him a mouthful what happened and all that. And shortly after that, my lawyer and my attorney says, you're done. Now we're going to go after the Department of Corrections in a civil lawsuit. And then a couple of years out, that was in 2001. So I was out of work from 2001 till about 2004, where I had to testify in the Senate hearings at the state capitol in front of the senators and Schwarzenegger in a packed house. about the Greenwall. It hit the front page of the LA Times. It hit all Associated Press. It hit everywhere in the United States. Even it hit the UK. Just everything going on. And then shortly after I testified, they moved me up in hiding off the grid for about 6 months.
Oh, wow. Yes, I heard you did move away and tried to and got away to a different place for about 6 months. Did you do it? Were you okay with that? Is that what was that the best thing to do?
Yes, I needed to go. I needed to go somewhere and just cool out, because I opened a big can of worms up. I mean, I exposed the Greenwall, even the senators. When I testified that day in 2004, I didn't know it, but my story hit the front page of the LA Times. But by that, when you're asking me if it goes higher than the warden, yes, it goes higher than the warden. It went all the way to the director of corrections at the time, because they were keeping every hush hush and squashed. My own union, I went to my own union, my chapter president, and asked him for help and if he could help me. And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, you're Officer Vodicka. We can't talk to you." And he walked away from me.
Oh, wow. During that time, going through all this commotion, what were you feeling at the time? Like, were you emotionally disturbed, being intimidated, and going up against big guys?
I was like, I lost it, man. I just didn't know what I was done. I was basically a dead man walking, basically, in corrections. I mean, I could never go back inside the prison system because of everything that would happen. So, yeah, it took a toll on me medically and all that. I have PTSD, and it just put a number on me medically wise.
Oh, man. But when you left, when you were in hiding for about 6 months, were you healing though? Did you feel better being away?
Oh yeah, because I was up isolated. I was about 20 miles off the grid between two lock gates. The pictures are in the book where I was, so the cabin and everything like that. It was an isolated area, and even my wife, after everything was done, my wife and me, I took her up there where I was up in the hiding area for. We were going to stay there a couple of nights, but we decided we had to go the next morning because it was too dark and just too spooky for certain people, So it was an isolated area. There was no electricity. I had just propane. It was, like I said, through two lock gates I had to go through. So it was up in the high country in the mountains.
Wow.
Because the correctional officers hated me. The Department of Corrections hated me because I opened up a can of worms. And then my story, later on, my story changed policies and procedures, and all staff members had to sit through mandatory training for 8 hours about the Greenwall, and the department wasn't going to tolerate it.
Wow. I can imagine what you were going through, man. I would have felt the same way, but
you know what, this book really opens the eyes for all the inmates serving time, the convicts serving time. It really gives their families an eye opener about, not all correctional officers are bad. There's that certain percentage. I'm not saying every one of them are bad, but a selective few make it bad for others. Because if you didn't play along with these guys, you were ousted. They would go out to your car if you didn't want to. They would key your car, do stupid things to you. They wouldn't even let you associate with them on the yard. They'd keep you standoff. They didn't want nothing to do with you. And if you didn't want to be a part of them, And all these rookies coming out of the academy, they swarmed to them because they wanted that protection.
Oh yes. And also, by the way, correlates to that. While we're here, I wanna get the whole huge misconception about the belief that people like me that's been to the system, ex-convict, that we don't like cops or we don't like police. That's a very ignorant thing to say. From my point of view, it don't matter who you are. It's either you're good or you're evil. That's all there is to it. What do you call this? So, can you share us, just not saying too much from your book, can you share us some of the few examples that you've seen them do that you personally did not like? Like, for example, um, just corruption at its finest. Can you share some of those?
Yeah, these guys would go down to the level 1 yard. These guys on the squad, ISU, they're big guys. I'm 6'5", about 315. These guys were my size. These guys were big guys like my size, and some of them were smaller. They would go down to the level 1 yard just to go down there to mess with the inmates, to fuck around with the inmates. And then they would take them around the side of the building, and they'd fine tune them. They'd destroy property. They'd destroy their radios. They'd go down and make a name for them just to piss people off. Now, a couple of level 1 inmates were tuned up pretty bad. That two of them had to come through the sally port. And where I was, they had to come through the vehicle sally port to get checked out by medical staff. And I saw that. So right away, I called the lieutenant, which guy name was Greg Lewis at the time, Lieutenant Lewis, who was in the book. I told him he was the ISU lieutenant. We worked together at Pelican Bay when we transferred to Sullivan's, but we were good friends and good people. And he was investigating his own squad, but the warden squashed it. The warden told Lieutenant Lewis, "You're not going to investigate my members of the Greenwall." So that's why Warden Lamarck was behind the whole thing. He kept everything tried to keep it in-house, hush hush. So, and Lieutenant Lewis didn't like that. So he went above the warden. He went to higher ups in Sacramento. And with my cooperation and his cooperation, brought down a big swarm of inspector generals and everybody else. But these guys were also doing, like if they didn't like you, like I said earlier, they would pull you out of the cell, cuff you to the rail so you can watch the cell search, turn to look at you and say, I'm going to use an example. "Hey, inmate Young, you see this?" And they pull an inmate matter shank out of their pocket and they stick it under your pillow. Now, who's the court's gonna believe, you or the correctional officer?
Oh man, wow! I understand.
They're gonna believe the staff member. So
Yeah.
a lot of these guys were, these guys were dirty, and they had the backing of the warden. And that's in the book. The inspector general's reports in the book, deposition testimonies in the book for the warden. I mean, the book tells all. It has names in it. It has all the physical evidence that this Greenwall existed. And the book's been out since 2009. We're in 2020. Never been challenged. My book's never been challenged and can't be challenged because everything I put in the book, I have all the evidence for.
You know what? Just that reminds me. From reading your book, man, you're a good writer, man, in details and description. I wish I could write just like you so I can make a good book also,
I was going to ask you, how did you get the book in the prison? Because my book was banned from going into the prison. They wouldn't allow my book to go in. How did you get it in there? Or how did you end up, was it floating around?
Yes, it was floating around. And I remember this, I was in Calipat around 2010, 2011, and 2012. And the homies they were talking about, yeah, they got the Greenwall, this and that. They check out the book, learn something. And then I read the book. I think I was in BMU in 5 block. I had no TV. You know how that goes. I got caught with the cell phone. And yeah, I was reading as much book as I can because, and then that's where I read the Greenwall book and I learned a lot. And from then on, I started to look around the CEOs that had the green bandana, and I didn't know who's who. And like I said, it's also my testimony that I am blessed not to having ran into anything bad like that, and it didn't get worse. And I got out of prison, thank God for that. So that's where I read the book, Calipat, around 2011, 2012.
Yeah, because
they had your book. A lot of people read it.
That's good. That's great. Well, now you got to meet the writer.
Yes, and here's the writer himself. It's an honor for you to be in the show, shedding light and alleviating confusion. And
well, right, and just real quick, right now they're going to possibly make a feature film of my story.
I hope so because, like I said, majority of saw about your film that hopefully they do come out with the film according from your book, the Greenwall book. Can you talk about it? Would we be expecting that anytime soon or anything like that?
Well, right now it's in development right now. You know, the screenplay is being written. And there's somebody, I can't really drop her name right now because she wants to keep it confidential, but she found me. We found each other on Twitter, and she really liked the story. She believes in telling true stories, and she says this is huge on criminal justice reform in California and all through the nation. So I say within the next year or 2 years, we'll see something somewhere, either a docuseries, HBO, and even a possible feature film.
All right, all right. Well, like I said, hopefully they come out with that soon because I'm a firm believer of whatever is hidden in the dark will eventually come to light. And you published the book 2009, and it's already 2020, and yet nobody can mess with your book because your foundation is based on truth. You know, so hopefully they come out with that.
I don't know if you see that, if your viewers can see that.
Yes, they can. Yes.
That's what it's called. I don't know. It's the Greenwall.
Yes, and I should have that also on my thumbnail. I'm gonna make that as a thumbnail.
Okay.
Yes. Let's see what else. So I also have one of the questions also about PC and GP because the public have this misconception that somehow they look at the PC as rehabilitated changed man and the GP as still bad people. How do you see them? How do you look at them? The PC from GP.
Well, the PC is not really a rehabilitation. You know, they're in there for their own protection. And like I said, the Department of Corrections has to protect those individuals that get locked up because they're in there for a reason. You know, either they're dropouts or they've ratted or snitched on somebody or you know, basically that. But the Department of Corrections has an obligation to protect those guys and until they're safe to move around the institution or somewhere else. As far as the GP inmates, you know, a lot of those guys are, you know, they're doing their time and all that, and they're the ones walking the line. You know, they're trying to do their time, and they're basically they're not basically the same as a PC inmate because, you know, GP inmates, there's not enough ADSEG or shoe cells to house everybody in the system. Now, some of the yards they have what you call an SNY yard, which is called a sensitive needs yard, and a lot of the institutions in the Department of Corrections in California are coming up with these yards because a lot of dropouts are dropping out, and a lot of inmates that can't program with the other general population inmates have to go to those yards.
Thank you for answering that because, yeah, man, because people would think that if you didn't go to PC, you're not a rehabilitated changed man, you know?
That's not true.
Thanks for clearing that out. I appreciate that. And also, I want to ask you, during those times where you were receiving death threats, you were in a hideout somewhere else, 20 miles away from your area, they were messing with you, you know, and everything. During those times, those dark times, because you decided to expose the truth. Did you notice your friends?
Yeah, you know, after I testified in the Senate hearings in 2004, January 21st, 2004, it's in the book, but after I testified in the Senate hearings in front of the state capitol, in front of the whole House, that night they isolated me up about 300 miles northern California, off the grid in the high country in the mountains for about 5 or 6 months until stuff started calming down. And until I started pursuing my litigation in the courts, the lawsuit against the Department of Corrections. And I only had really one true friend who stuck by my cell the whole time. And I had my family members and my son, and that's about it.
That's what happens when things get real. You thought you have a lot of friends, right? And all of a sudden, when you're down, that's when you find out your true friends. So that's why I wanted to ask that, because
you know, the other thing is I wasn't going to write this book, but I had to come out of hiding to bury my father. His last words to me were to write the book before he died. So he encouraged me to write the book, and that was one of his last words to me, to write this book and share it to everybody who needs to know what happens behind the walls of the Department of Corrections and what they did to you.
Oh, wow. Also, how do you feel about yes, you're gonna get persecuted for exposing the truth. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like an obligation, or is it the right thing to do because it's your character?
I was raised. My mom and dad raised me and my brother with strict morals and ethics. And when I took an oath in 1988, when I graduated from the Department of Corrections Academy, I took an oath to uphold that oath. I didn't take an oath to adhere to the code of silence. I took an oath, to serve and protect. I mean, like I said, the convicts and inmates, they were in the prison system. We didn't sentence them. The courts and the jury sentenced them to the courts. We were there just to watch over them and protect them to make sure nothing happens to them.
Oh, okay. This oath, I'm kind of curious also. This oath that you took, does it say anything about to protect and serve?
Yes, it's just like the regular. Our oath is similar to the same oath as a police officer takes on the street. It's to protect and serve. And I don't know the full oath, but it's pretty detailed.
Okay. While you're doing the oath, you have your hand on the Bible also?
No, not on the Bible. We just had to raise our right hand and swear on our oath, and then after that, they gave us our badge.
Yes, sir. Understood. Tell us how people will easily access your book, the Greenwall book.
Well, like I said earlier, the book, right? The book, the Greenwall. That's the front cover of the book.
Yes.
You can access it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. You can go to my web, iUniverse.com, publish the book, and you can actually go to the foreign Amazon, Amazon.uk, or maybe even Amazon. They have Amazon in the Philippines. I'm not sure, but you can access it that way. It's a powerful story. There's names in the book. Everything in the book I put in the book is all factual evidence that I secured, and it's a pretty powerful story. There's no book ever written against the Department of Corrections in California concerning the Greenwall.
And I appreciate you writing the book. To all the truth lovers out there, I want to encourage everybody to check it out. Get the book and see for yourself, see from your own judgment. For all the true lovers out there, truth lovers, And lastly, let me just conclude this by asking, what will be the contribution of the book, the Greenwall book, to humanity?
Well, you know what? Hopefully the Green Book I shared is to expose the corruption behind the walls by the Department of Corrections, by staff members, and you know what? We have to change humanitarian. I mean, prison reform, criminal justice reform is huge right now. Black Lives Matter is huge right now. All lives matter is huge right now. So hopefully this sheds a light on criminal justice reform.
All right. That was pretty clear to me. Thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else you want to add on before we conclude this?
No, hey, Para, it was great interviewing with you. If you ever need anything, feel free to contact me. If you need any questions about the Department of Corrections or any type of procedures or whatever, reach out to me anytime you want. And if you ever want to do another piece on something else, feel free.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Well, you enjoy the rest of the night over there, and I send my utmost regards to you and your loved ones out there, sir.
You too, sir. Be safe.
Everybody say what you mean and mean what you say, because real recognize real. Thanks.